Get a corporate conversation now. Raghupati Singhania, who's the chairman and managing director at JK Tyre Industries, is joining us now. The top three talking points, of course, during the conversation will be the price revision due to GST reduction. That continues to remain the big story, rubber pricing trend, and outlook on Mexico business as well amidst the tariff tensions. Mr. Singhania, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in. Well, I have to start by talking about the big GST cut on tires being supplied to tractors. It's a 5% duty. On the other tires, it's around 18% from 28%. What is the impact that you will see? Will you pass on these price cuts that have come by to consumers as well?
First and foremost, I think is a very welcome step at this right juncture. And it will certainly boost the Indian economy, particularly which is consumption-led. As far as our specific business is concerned, I think it will certainly give a boost to the tire business across the board. In the tractors, we do see some demand pickup because of the cut in excise duty, and the GST, I mean. And also in the overall bigger business, the cutting of GST on trucking, for instance, is going to make a huge change in the country. If you look at it this way, the goods and vehicle movement is the basic delivery mode. That is for consumer goods or whether it's for industrial goods like steel or cement or even food grains. So it is going to reduce the cost of transportation. And trucks are the backbone of industrial movement in the country. So the supply chain is completely driven 65% to 70% in India by road transport. And even any GST reduction on the upfront will reduce the capital costs of the trucks, which will, again, according to me, create some demand boost for the trucks. And so therefore it will revive the auto industry as well.
Right. Mr. Singhania, I know at the end of Q1, you said that you expect the tire industry to grow at 7 to 8% in FY26, and you also upheld your double-digit consolidated revenue growth guidance. Post the GST cuts that have come about, both number one for the auto sector and number two, even for the tire sector, where do you see growth as far as FY26 is concerned?
I would say growth will be more or less as you just mentioned, maybe a couple of points higher, because look, the equilibrium is not disturbed. The demand-supply equilibrium is not basically disturbed. It is not a price-sensitive product. Let's be very clear. So this is a consumption need product, and therefore it will not increase the demand superficially, but marginally, yes. And to that extent, the prediction for the demand growth will go up a few percentage points. That's what. Yeah.
So it's demand inelastic for tires in general, and that's why a cut will, of course, improve sentiment, but you don't see that growth will increase so much because the equilibrium is already at balanced levels. Mr. Singhania, this is one part of business, GST cuts that have come by. I just wanted to understand whether there'll be any price cuts that we'll see in products from here on. How do you go about passing on the benefit to the consumers, and how have rubber prices trended so far? How do we align the supply chain altogether?
You see, it's a very simple, because the prices, there's nothing like price cut. It is, let us say my price was 100 rupees and I was charging 28% on top of it and billing the customer. Tomorrow onwards, I will do 100 rupees and add 18% and bill the customer. So to this extent, you may say the cost of acquisition for the customer comes down. There's not really a price cut per se.
Actually, when you say price cuts, I think consumers just become happy. So if you put it that way, it just helps selling the product as well, is why I asked you that particular question. But on the raw material side, how are rubber prices trending currently?
Rubber prices are at the moment reasonable, and they're not very high. Of course, this is a season, as you know, off-season with a rainy season. But the rubber prices are more or less stable at the moment, and we don't see an extraordinary hike on the front. And even other raw materials are behaving generally all right.
So, Mr. Singhania, sequentially, can we expect better EBITDA margins Q2 versus Q1? So, the second part of the question is, GST rate cuts, clearly you benefit. What we also want to understand is that when it comes to JK Tornel in Mexico, there was a lot of overhang due to tariffs as far as USA, which was one of the customers was concerned. So, going forward, is there more clarity now?
Yes, indeed. I mean, for the time being, there's only a nominal tariff in the imports from Mexico into US. As a matter of fact, if I may digress slightly, all the tempomaniac which is going on, tariff war, and so that makes our Indian tires going into US a little more expensive because 50% tariff. So in fact, we have strategized to send in more tires from our Mexico plant to US, where the tariffs are very limited. So in fact, it is in a way we have strategized or re-strategized our whole game plan.
Okay, so how has it changed operations for you? Because, you know, selling or sending stuff from Mexico versus other geographies would involve some cost or would involve some reorganization. If you can explain, has it become a little costlier to change or shift that production there or send cars from there? Do you have to add capacities? Because I'm assuming a lot of capacity was taken care of in other geographies.
A very good question indeed. There are two parts to it. One is organizing sales, the other is organizing production. As far as the sales is concerned, we were already, as a company, exporting to LATAM in a big way, Mexico and Europe, and apart from Africa and Middle East. So in fact, it's just a question of diverting, reallocating volumes. So that does not require a new setup of sales. As far as the production is concerned, we have reasonable capacities in Mexico, and that product which we were selling to LATAM, we may divert to US to an extent and supply it to LATAM from India. So, you know, that little bit of flexibility we have, luckily, because of 9 plant locations across the world.
Okay. Mr. Singhania, you know, you had also alluded to the fact that you are in talks with a couple of customers as far as the premium segment is concerned. Have you managed to close any new customer acquisitions in Q2?
Well, this is an ongoing process. So,
Okay.
number of customers are going on in discussions, and they're evaluating the products, and they're visiting our R&D facilities and so on and so forth. But specifically to mention that if we've closed a particular customer in Q2, I can't pinpoint any particular one at the moment.
All right, Mr. Singhania, we take that point. Thank you so much for joining in today and patiently answering all those questions. That's the word coming in from JK Tyre. They'll pass on the GST